Welcome to another video tutorial. This time I've been asked to show how to add colour and texture to a drawing in Adobe Illustrator. I'm just going to show you very quickly how to find a fill, that's a vector-based fill in WGSN. So if you go to the WGSN website and go to Design Resources, and when this opens, I'll show you where fills are. Under design components, you'll see we've got CADs and flats, brushes, fills, embellishments and trims. Inside embellishments and trims, you'll find things like buttons and toggles and kinds of fastenings, those kinds of things. And in fills, these are vector-based. You'll find lace, you'll find patterns and things in there. And they're all created as vectors. So I'm going to pick one of these and download it. I'm going to pick this one. So I'm just going to click this. It says it's a vector. Unless it's a PDF, it should open directly in Illustrator. So let's just see what we get. So that's downloaded. Right, it's opening directly in Illustrator, which is great. So this is our fill. Now I'm going to just check and see if this has already been set up as a pattern. So to do that, I go to my swatches panel and have a look through, and you can see there it has been. It's called splodge print. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a box and there we go. So I've added this as a fill, and then I can just copy this and hop into the document that I want to work on. Now I've made this document. If you've watched the drawing a blazer tutorial, you'll recognise this jacket. So I've brought this in, so this will now be in my swatches panel. There it is. And even if I delete that, it will still remain. Okay. Now I've made this this document, so I've got 4 versions of this jacket, and they're all coloured, just plain fill colour in a pink. Okay, so if I click on this and you have a look down here, you can see the fill colour is this pink. So if I just double click on there, you can see that's the pink. They're the measurements for it, and it's got a black stroke. Now I'm going to leave this one as it is, so you can see how it started, and I'm going to add that splodge splodge and swatch, way too similar for my little brain at this time of night. I'm just going to remove all these swatches that I'm not using, okay, because it just means loads of ridiculous scrolling. So to get rid of everything that I'm not using, and I'm going to use this one, so I'm just going to make a little rectangle and fill it with that, like that. So I want to keep hold of that one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything that I'm not using. So I just go to select all unused, and then just click on the little wastebasket down the bottom there and delete the swatch selection. So that's a much more simplified version. Now anything that I add in the swatches panel is something that I actually want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on a piece of this jacket. I might just start off with the lapels, and I want to add this splodge print. Now I could just do this, but you can see there that I've lost the colour. Okay, now if I go back to this splodge print, it might be because the background of this box is actually white. So if I were to create a box and paint it pink again, and then fill it with that splodge colour, or splodge, yeah, you see we've got this white background. So this is going to be slightly different to what I was expecting. I thought we might have a transparent background here, but it appears not, but it doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this lapel and fill that with the splodge print as well, and then this little back piece. Okay, so we've got this kind of splodge pattern going on. Now, if I actually wanted this to have some pink in it, I can do that. I've got something called Appearance in Illustrator. It looks like this, I always think it looks like a sunshine. I'm not quite sure what the symbol's supposed to be, but it's called Appearance. If you can't find it in your panels, if you go to Window and just look for it here, it's called Appearance. Now, what this will allow you to do, you can add multiple fills and multiple strokes, okay? So at the moment I've only got one fill on this lapel, and you can see here it's a very tiny little thumbnail of the splodge pattern that we've got. And what I'm going to do is add another fill, and I'm just going to drag it down so it's right at the back, and I'm going to make a new swatch of this pink colour. Okay, so I'm just going to select something that's pink, and I'm going to drag this to my swatches. I'm just going to open up my swatch panel and just drag this down. So I've now got, I don't want it in greys, do I? There we are. So I've now got a pink swatch. Okay, so now when I go to Appearance, if I click on this lapel and add a new fill, drag it down to the bottom and make this bottom fill pink, yeah, and you can see absolutely nothing changes. Whoops a daisy. But if I change the opacity of the fill above, and you can see here the opacity is set to default, and if I click on that, you can see I could change the opacity, okay, so I can see a little bit of pink through, but what that actually does is it just fades out that splodge swatch. But if I change the blend mode from normal, I can change this to something like multiply, and you can see now that I've got the pink lapel with this pattern over the top. Okay, so I could do the same here. So I could click on this and make this pink, okay, and then change the opacity and change the blend mode to multiply, and there we go. Oops, I keep moving things. And I'm going to do the same with this. So I'm going to add a new fill again, drag it down to the bottom, change this to pink, and change the blend mode from normal to multiply. Okay, so we've got a jacket now that's got this patterned fill over the lapel, and I could maybe add the same thing onto the pockets. I could do whatever I wanted with that. Alternatively, I could do something something slightly different. I could actually mix up two textures, maybe a pattern and a texture in Photoshop, and import them in. So I'm just going to hop to Photoshop for a second. Here we have this pattern that it's actually come from WGSN, and it's a print. It's not called a pattern in WGSN, it's under prints. So when you're looking for things like this, that's where you need to look. The first thing I need to do is set this up so it will repeat properly. There are repeat tiles and things set up in here, but by the time you've worked out how the artist has set it up, by far the easiest thing is to delete all this. Okay, so I'm going to select these 3 layers over here and delete them, and it just leaves me with this flat pattern fill. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these guides that are already here, and I'm going to set up a little rectangle. I'm just going to change my workspace here. There we go. So I'm going to move these around, I'm going to pick this up and drag it down, and I'm going to just sit it on top of where this like purple berry is here, this painted berry. And I've got another one of those down here. So this is where the repeat begins. So I'm going to move this guide up to sit on top in the same place as this guide. And then I'm going to move this guide from the side to just touch the edge of that berry, like that. And then you can see over here it repeats in this space. So I'm just going to pull this back and put the guide down there like that. So now I know that everything inside this rectangle encompasses everything that's in that repeat. So I'm just going to use the marquee tool and select a rectangle inside those guides like that. So I'm being quite precise about it. And then I'm going to go to image and choose crop. Okay, now if I wanted to test and see how well this repeats, I can do that. And I'm just going to drop my selection by using a keyboard shortcut of Command or Control D. And then I'm going to go to Filter and choose Other and Offset. And I can move the pixels around here. So you can see I've moved the pixels over and down. Okay, and you can see we've got no obvious hard lines. It's repeating very nicely. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I know when I take this into Illustrator, it will form a perfect repeat. So I can select all of that and copy it, and then hop back into Illustrator and paste. And I can make this a bit smaller, I think. So I'm just going to scale this down so it's more in proportion with my jacket. Maybe something like that. And then I can turn this into a pattern. So I'm going to make this a pattern now in Illustrator. So make sure you've got it selected and then go to go to Object and Pattern and Make. And you'll see it'll give you a message that it's added the new pattern to the swatches panel already, and there it is, look. Okay, it's just called New Pattern, so I click OK, and I can call this one, I'll call it Botanical 1, because I might have more later. The tile type is set up as a grid, which works perfectly when you've brought things in that are already a nice tile repeat from Photoshop. And you can see there that it does repeat absolutely perfectly. Then when I'm done, all I have to do is just click above this little red line that appears, and that's kind of agreeing to that pattern. And you can see it's now called Botanical over here in the swatches. So now what I might want to do is apply that, that pattern to my jacket instead of the pink. Okay, so I could just do that. Now the thing about just plonking this in is if I don't move it at all, can you see how it's got this kind of very flat look? The pattern, it goes straight over. Now if I bought a jacket that matched up like that, I'd be very, very happy indeed, because that would show that somebody had taken immense care when laying out the pattern and immense care when they were putting the garment together, and I'd be paying probably an awful lot of money for it. But the reality is even the nicest jackets don't quite fit that perfectly. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to move it slightly. So I'm going to go to Object and Transform and Move. Okay, now I don't want to move the garment itself, I just want to move the pattern. So over here on this dialog box, we've got Transform Object switched on, so I'm going to turn that off, and you can see now that I've just moved the pattern. So I want to be a bit more controlled about this. So that's where we started, and I want to move it let's just move it. So I've just moved it a little bit, okay, maybe even less than that. There we go. So it's ever so slightly off. That's much more believable if this was a high quality garment. If it was from somewhere like Primark, it might be more like that. So sorry, Primark. So that's what we can do to make this look a little bit more real, but it's very flat looking. When you zoom in, you can see there's no texture on this at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little look at something else that I've opened up in Photoshop. I've got this texture that I found, and I thought that would be rather nice for my jacket. So I need to make sure that this is already set up and will repeat properly. So I haven't already done this, so I just need to do a little check. So I'm just going to offset it. I'll just reset this back to 0. That looks okay that way. And there's a funny line here. Can you see that? So I might want to try and eradicate that because it might look a little odd. So what I'm going to do is I think I could select it. Oh, actually, no, that is part of the pattern because it does it here as well and here. It just seems to go in the wrong direction. So what I might do is I might do a patch and see how this works. That's probably better. I'm not sure if that is better actually. It might be better if I took it out altogether or just left it alone. I think I might leave it alone. Okay, so I'm going to just take this and take it into Illustrator. And I'm going to paste that down there. Again, it's a little on the large side, so I'm going to just scale it very quickly so it's more in proportion. Something like that might work. And then again, I'm going to go to Object and Pattern and Make. And I'm going to call this Herringbone Texture. And it's going to be set as a grid, and that will do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the texture alongside this pattern. So I'm going to click on one of these panels and go to Appearance again and add a new fill. And again, I need to drag that down. This time I'm going to add the texture on top. It really doesn't matter which way up you have this. And again, I'm going to change this to multiply, and now you can see we've got a texture on top of the jacket, and you can see that just gives it a more real world look. Okay, so I've got a texture with the pattern. So this isn't a drawn pattern, this is something that's pixel based rather than vector based, and that's just basically to show you the difference between dealing with a vector and dealing with a pixel based thing. So this is entirely vector. We've got a vector, a pink vector fill, and the splodge pattern is also a vector. And here we have a pixel based pattern with this botanical pattern, and then this pixel based texture, and they've both been mixed together in Illustrator. So that's how we use the appearance panel in Photoshop.